Yes, it's What a Boast, a celebration of Reeves and Mortimer. Please welcome your hosts for this podcast, MJ Price and Paula Wiseman.
Hello and welcome to Quite a Boast, a podcast dedicated to the work and genius of Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer. My name is Matt Price, founder of the Reeves and Mortimer Depository of Curious Stuff Facebook group.
And I am Paula Wiseman, creator and founder of the Divine Comedians podcast.
Today's guest first appeared on the live comedy scene in the late 1980s and has gone on to become one of the country's greatest stand-up comedians, and he continues to entertain punters up and down the land to this day. On TV, he has performed, written and acted in many shows, including Happy Hour, Lead Balloon and Bad Move. And he also held the role of team captain for 3 series of Shooting Stars, where on a weekly basis he was subjected to a barrage of unkind and uncalled for jibes from a certain Mr. Vic Reeves. Please enter the Novelty Island paddock, Jack Dee.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Jack. How are you?
Good.
Very good, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
You're on a day off today?
I'm on a day off, and at home. So it's it's nice to not be shooting off somewhere on tour, because I'm on tour, but I'm having a bit of a breather. So I was meant to be touring Australia, and then I decided not to. So I'm glad I did as well. But hopefully do that next year.
Let's go back to your early days on the comedy scene. So when did you start, roughly? So late 80s?
86, yeah, 1986, yeah. And I started off at the Comedy Store, and I'd heard that this new kind of scene was going on in the comedy world. I was quite naive about what was going on culturally, and the simple reason for that is that I worked in restaurants, and it's got many plus sides to it, but the downside of that, back then anyway, was that you just kind of never got out and you never got to see anything on telly because you were always working. And so I was slightly unaware that this new comedy scene thing had worked. It was what was going on and happening. And although I'd been trying to get into drama school, I made this vow to myself I'd go down to the Comedy Store on my next night out and that night off, and just discovered this whole scene of comedians that I found relatable. And I can remember thinking they've started without me. Why aren't I involved in this? And that was the beginning of it for me. I got up on stage. It was an open mic night actually. I got up on stage that night, and it so began my journey into comedy.
Was the deadpan thing always a very natural thing for you?
It was actually to begin with. You know, it was the most natural thing because I didn't think about it the first time I went on. I just I discovered that they said the compere said it's an open mic night. I didn't even know what that was, and someone explained, it means that people can get up and have a go at the end of the show, at the end of the evening, which is how it worked then. And so I went up. It was Neil Malarkey was the host, the compere, and so I just said, "Can I go on?" And he said, "Yeah." And what's your name? And writes my name down. And there were about 3 or 4 people who'd gone on before me, and all got booed off. It was about midnight or something, and most of the audience had left. To be honest, it was the ones that either too drunk or malevolent to move, and so it's a kind of weird atmosphere anyway. But I went on thinking, well, I'll just say hello. I'll just say hello, and I sort of aped what I'd heard other people saying on the night, which was like, "Oh, it's great to be here." But when I said it seemed to get a chuckle, and people thought, "Well, you obviously don't think it's great to be here." And although that was a kind of big result, because it seemed like what I was saying was making people laugh, even though there weren't any real gags involved. And so when I came off, they said the guy running it on that night was Don Ward was there, who started the Comedy Store, and he said, "How long you been doing this?" And so I said, "Well, not very long." And he said, "Well, he said, if you want to come back next Friday, we'll put you on again, after the show, and give you." And I thought, great. I couldn't believe that they thought there was something there, but looking back, I'd sort of made people laugh, and I was really, really lucky that they just said, "Yeah, come and have another go." And then it became less instinctive for me because I was then pre-thinking what I would do, and went through a whole sort of odyssey of finding out, sort of trial by error, and overthinking it and getting it wrong, and having a really tough time on stage there. But I just kept going back, and that's how it started for me.
So Vic and Bob, Vickery's Big Night Out started about the same sort of time, 86, 87,
Hmm.
North London, their own little patch there. Then didn't really stray into the Comedy Store and area. Did you ever go to their stomping ground? I know they used to play like the Tunnel Club and
Yeah, they were
Reeves
Southeast
Mortimer.
London. I always associated them with,
Mm,
and I think, yeah, the tunnel was one place, and there was there was a place in Woolwich. I think there was that they kind of regularly had I became aware of them because they had a residency for, every sort of every Friday night, and my manager by then said, this must have been about, yeah, this has been about 89, 90. And he said, "Come, you must come and see them. They're great." And so I went along and watched it, and it was I was blown away really because it doesn't it's kind of completely out there on its own, and it was obviously contemporary, but seemed to not have anything to do with the stand up circuit that was emerging, and
yeah.
they really never crossed paths. Occasionally, I'd be on a bill with them, and I think both of them felt they didn't really belong to the circuit, and that they rightfully thought that they would have to create their own space wherever they went, and they did have their own big following, and there was it was definitely a real thing. It was like a cult thing. But that's not to disguise the fact it was also really, really funny and original and brilliant. And those cult comedy movements sometimes aren't. I don't think you can always say that about them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're their own troupe of performers who played with them. A lot of them went on to become like the Fast Show team, like Paul and Charlie and
Yeah, yeah.
Simon. But yeah, as you say, they never really brought in what you call straight stand-ups. It's a completely different
No,
world.
no.
So can you think of before Shooting Star, so through the 90s, early noughties, were there many times you would appear on like your paths would cross on TV shows and things with them on
I don't think
charity
so.
shows and things?
I didn't sort of when did I see them? I think I'm right in saying I was in Montreal with them. And it's such a long time ago. I can't remember if I was there or this is something that someone told me. I'm pretty sure I was there at the same time as them because I kind of was in awe of them, and I didn't know. I always had this impression that they didn't like stand up or stand ups very much, and so I wasn't someone who'd go bounding up to them. Yeah, I was there with them because I remember seeing Charlie Higson out there in Montreal
Yeah.
and chatting to him, and and there was a big gala thing there at Montreal that we all did just for laughs, and I watched them from the back of the room. It was a huge audience actually. It was a 3,000 seater, and very, very nerve wracking. I'd been on, and I didn't even know it was being televised until I got to the theatre, and I realised it was not only a 3,000 seater, which was by then the biggest thing I'd ever done, and but then it was also going out live on telly across North America, and so you can imagine it was pretty nervous, especially as I was still so inexperienced. And I went out there, and the one thing I remember about it was it went okay, but when I walked out to the microphone, I realised my arms had gone numb with the nervousness. So all I could do was stand there at the mic stand with my hands in my pockets and do my set. And quite a lot of people afterwards said that was great the way you just sort of stood there, just stood still and did it without, you know. I didn't let on that I didn't have an option at the time. My arms had gone numb. But then I saw, yeah, Vic and Bob were on, and I remember them doing this thing. They had Vic had bought his lucky
The
carpet,
carpet, yeah.
yeah, and doing the song, and I mean the you know, as genius as they are, I think you need some word of maybe kind of introduction to it or something. I don't know. But I think it was a bit too mad for the context of a stand-up gala. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Because they kind of were doing it, and people was just saying, "Well, what is this? I don't understand. What's with the carpet? Why has he got a carpet on his shoulder? It's the lucky carpet, Bob." And no one kind of got it. And the other thing is Malcolm Hardy was there as well, and he came out stark naked, and lit a cigarette without saying anything. And then eventually, when it went quiet, he just said, "Does anyone mind if I smoke?" But so yeah, Vic and Bob were. I remember sort of being around them at that time, and yeah, of course, bumping into them here and there, but generally, I think they wisely had and it was a sort of necessity that they had created their own ecosystem within the comedy world, and that really suited them, I thought.
I think what we said was right, and what Jim has in common probably with Malcolm Hardy is Bob less so. I think Bob gets a bit more nervous when he goes on stage, but they really don't care. And
Mm.
if they're going to do what they're going to do, and if the audience laughs, that's just a bonus.
Yeah,
The
and
feel is,
I think it's a wonderful uh, quality to have in what you do, because it's, I suppose, arguable that they wouldn't have created what they had if they had really been so mindful of a sort of laughs per minute thing that stand-ups get caught up in. That I certainly do. I don't like it to be silent on stage. I like everything to be heading towards a punchline, and because that's where I come from comedically. That's my tradition, and that's my instinct. Whereas I think they come from their comedy is a kind of a sort of maybe a bit deeper, even you could say, and the people that hook into it and get it on a whole other level.
so let's talk about shooting stars. Obviously, you were brought in to captain Team A after
Yeah.
Mark Lamar and Will Self, and obviously both of those had their TV persona, which was to be the grumpy team captain against opposite Ulrika, which
Hmm.
I'm not sure how different that was to their actual personas in their cases. But I think with
Mm.
yourself, it was
Yeah.
it was more of a persona. How
Yeah.
did that come about?
They just they actually there was talk of reviving Shooting Stars, so they did a one-off special. It might have been a
Mm,
Christmas thing, and they invited me on just with the purpose of seeing how long I could go without laughing. It with an opera singer
yeah.
singing right in my face, and that seemed to be quite well received. And as a result, they asked me to do the series that came from that one-off. And so yeah, that's how it came about. It was a kind of I found it I didn't find it the easiest job really, because it's their gig, and
Mm,
as a comedian, where it's almost as if you come up with any one-liners or things that are clearly gags, they don't fit well in that medium. So it was I just sort of ended up kind of relying more on just my face and responding to what they wanted to do with me, and I think that's what they wanted me there for in the first place anyway. So there was lots of fun to be had with that, and it started to work once I'd settled in with it. I remember Lee Mack was a guest once on it, and and he went straight in as soon as they said hello to me. He went straight in with three or four gags, and they didn't go for anything, these gags, and he just was left sitting there thinking, what the hell? And I leant over. He reminded me of this story. I leant over and said, "Welcome to my world." It's not easy because it's like combining oil paints with watercolors. It's just very, very different thing. They're both perfectly valid forms of doing something, but you don't really combine them. And I had to find my way into it. And there were other times when I thought this has got to be the best seat in the house, hasn't it? I'm just sitting there watching these two work. And it was, I would like to say, I'd like to say I learned a lot. I'm not sure I did. I suppose I learned a lot about how they work is what I learned, and that I can't work like that. But it was nevertheless very brilliant.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of stuff that you didn't see on the telly where Jim would he once serenaded someone in the audience with his guitar. He would do. He's so good at doing that very arch performance. And he chose this woman in the audience and started playing and singing to her, but at the same time let off a stink bomb. And I just thought the mischievousness of doing that on telly is what is the point, really?
What's the point? Yeah.
No. So he didn't ever care about that. I also remember sitting there at times just being just fascinated by their physicality, the two of them. And Bob, I think sometimes you overlook how good Bob is because it's easy to think it was Vic Reeves as this character of Vic Reeves, but they're both so brilliant at that at physical comedy, and Bob has this extraordinary way of what's the word I'm looking for, but he does a pastiche, really. It's a pastiche of a daytime TV presenter and a quiz host all in one. It's a kind of like a horrendous mix of Alan Partridge and a regional news presenter. It's just very cheesy and very not that it was taking after Alan Partridge, but it was of that ilk. And he was just so good at that. And the two of them then with coming up with their silly catchphrases and stuff, it all plays into that so well. And without realizing you're being drawn into their comedy universe, and it's not a thing you can escape from easily. And so I kind of realized after a bit, after a few, after doing it for a bit, I realized actually the less I try, the better it'll be because they can just use me for whatever purposes they have lined up that week.
Yeah, I think the first series you did, you say so they're half-hour episodes, and you got Vic and Bob need to do their stuff. You got Dan Skinner as Angelos, Matt
Yeah,
Lucas was still there,
yeah,
and yourself, and the sketches, and the quiz itself. At the end of the day, there was a lot to squeeze
mm,
in. So I think when Matt left
yeah.
and Dan moved over, there was more room for you all to put your comedy bits out there. Yeah,
Yeah, it sort of was a space that we could all grow into, and yeah, and I got involved in some of the sketches, which was always very exciting to watch because we'd be on some location somewhere, and they did a lot. Although they did write stuff in advance, of course they did, but you'd look at the script and it would and I imagine it had been Jim for some reason. I imagine it was his voice when I was reading it, but the stage directions, I don't know if it was Jim or Bob, but it would be like they're all wearing tweed and shit like that. Now, you never see stuff that you in a script is usually somewhat more detailed.
Yeah, yeah.
But they had a brilliant team, like in wardrobe and makeup, who kind of got what they needed, and so it wasn't so much wardrobe as a big dressing up box, that they had around with them, and so they'd come up with this idea, and then they'd just create the characters as they go along. And I remember seeing Jim sitting in makeup and saying, can I try some other teeth? And so he had two or three sets of different teeth that he would wear for characters, and just slowly this thing would emerge, and it sounds a bit. I don't know, it's a bit like actory to say, and you see this character would emerge, but it was suddenly, it was he just switched into this thing that he was looking for. And I do always admire that the madness of that character with the little horse moustache.
Yeah.
That instead of a moustache, he stuck a tiny toy moustache, toy horse underneath his under his, and I just think that's so. What's extraordinary about doing that is getting it right and it not looking pathetic and not looking like you are trying too hard.
Mm.
It's really, really fine edge, that a fine line to tread is between being genuinely surreal and brilliant and being pretentious, I guess, is where it would go. And the two of them together are so, I think, so good at that. And when I've described them to people in the past, I've always said that really they are, just go back to another painting analogy actually, but they're able to a bit like in, for instance, Picasso as a cubist can take apart all the elements of a face and then put them together in the most bizarre way, and there's still the essence of that face is there, and or that character. And so a portrait can say so much about that person without even particularly being a photographic resemblance, but is it's nevertheless brilliant. And they were able to do that. They can deconstruct a scenario and put it together in the most mad way, and it in its own, and then somehow it still makes sense and is still and still a pleasure to watch and very funny.
Yeah, that's it. It still looks like a panel show.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite.
So, but that's the thing. And the other thing I've always said is that they were as we're, I'm a comedy performer. I'm a stand-up comic, but they are, I'd say, and this, I don't mean this pretentiously, but they're comedy artists, and I mean that in a kind of in a functional way. And I'm trying to
Mm.
explain a bit more about how they worked. Yeah.
So yeah, your on-screen interactions with especially with Jim on that show are always a joy
Mm.
every week. Were you prepared for anything he was going to say to you when he introduced you?
Absolutely never. There was never any forewarning of that. I just thought, just brace yourself and take what you can.
Yes, I think of some of the ones. Jack with your face like
Mm.
some absolute beauty. Scooby Doo's Xmas dump was always one that sticks in my mind.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, I hadn't remembered that one. Abandoned warehouse, like your face like an abandoned warehouse. I just like, again, it's getting those things exactly right. Are I think is just cleverer than it seems. You can't just come up with random words and put them
Mm.
together and make it work. So they did put in a surprising amount of work, and they had a comedian, Math Brown, who runs various venues and is very helpful to us comedians. But Math would do the warm ups in the studio, and quite often how he would do the warm up is by trying out a load of lines that they had written to see if it works or not. So for the
Right.
next week, they use the ones that work or not, and that was a good way of just trying it out, really. So it was those true or falses. Where
Mm.
Math would just try them with the audience, and of course they don't all work, but all of them are pretty good, and the ones that really work make it into the show. So it'd be memorably. There was true or false. Looking after Norman Wisdom in his old age isn't as much fun as it sounds. Yeah, so they are. I never did know who was writing this. Whether it was Jim or Bob.
Yeah.
But
We
they
just know
they
they were just trying to what's going to crack Jack
they've
up,
got their
what's going to
fingerprints
break him.
all over it. Yeah, all over
Yeah.
all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Explosion on a ship farm. That was another one. Yeah.
Did you have any favourite guests, Jack, that were on your team?
Um, I think I no, I can't remember thinking, oh, this is a favorite guest. I can't. I think the ones that you enjoy are the ones who just buy into it and just thorough and just find it hilarious. And and Jim with the female guest would always come over and start stroking his thighs and say, now that we're going out and all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he could reduce people to tears doing that, girls to tears in a good way. It was always that was always a pleasure. But yeah, it's most guests go on that show because they're gonna, they know the show and they love it, and they're gonna be part of it.
So yeah, as you mentioned, you did some of the sketches. Some of my favourite, 70s Facebook was a very
Oh
good
yeah,
one.
yeah. What was that? I
Um,
can't. You have to remind me of what that was. I can't remember.
it's like in a village hall, and it's
Yeah.
before the internet, obviously, and you're
Oh,
all
that's
carrying
it.
around
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah,
Polaroids.
yeah,
I
yeah,
like you,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And it was when we did like a police drama, which is very bizarre, and you've all got birds of prey.
Birds of prey on our arm.
Yeah.
And people say to me, "What was that about? Why were the birds of prey?" I said, "I haven't got a clue. I've got no idea. I don't know any, and I don't suppose they know either. They just thought it would be funny,
Yeah.
And again, it's just they're getting it just right and being able to point up the sort of, I don't know, the campness and the archness of TV police dramas of that ilk,
Yeah.
and sending it up by doing that, by everyone having a stuffed bird on their arm that you don't refer to, is extraordinary. I just think it's extraordinary sort of comic flourish that I don't think anyone else would have ever come up with as an idea.
No, because you say they're pastiches of TV shows. You can still tell what they're taking the
Th-
mickey out
This
of.
is it. This is it. But somehow it does come through, and you don't miss the point of it.
Mm,
But you'd be very hard pressed to explain why that works.
yeah. Someone else who joined that same time as you, who was a newcomer, was Dan Skinner
Yeah,
as Angelos.
yeah,
And I'd say he was billed as Angelos in the credits, and I think the general public, a lot of them were just completely baffled to who this person was,
yeah,
thinking it's a genuine
yeah,
burger store
yeah.
holder.
Yeah, it was, and I had been unaware of him on the circuit. I hadn't seen him, so he was an instant hit. And Dan Skinner is another, just it's just a wonderful comedian. His podcast series that he's got, I don't know if anyone's heard any of that, which is just uh, really, really clever and original.
Yeah,
And he did so well on that program, and it was just a good idea. I think that again, it's a fine line between someone who is just a bit mad in the nicest sense, and someone who's mentally ill, which you don't want to go down that road. And
yeah,
so he's kind of he was given this talent of being able to play. He brings out a flute, isn't it, or a recorder at some point, and plays it really, really well. And that thing of that suggesting that he's a savant, he's not a victim of this, he's actually just doing things on his own terms, I think it was good. But everything he did was again, he's very good at treading that fine line of getting the surrealism and the madness just right.
yeah. We spoke to Dan on the podcast. We also spoke to Ulrika, and I
Mm.
think she said out of the three other team captains she had to play against, I think she enjoyed her time more with yourself. As I say, I think the screen personas of Mark and Will probably wasn't too far away to what they were
Yeah,
like in
yeah,
real life. Where I think and I think it shows you were both enjoying each other's company and
yeah.
having a laugh together.
Ulrika's she's a delight. She's kind of unoffendable, and that's always a nice quality in someone. And she could take anything from Vic and Bob and kind of enhance it by enjoying the moment.
So you get a phone call tomorrow. There's going to be a new series of Shooting Stars. Are you in? Would you go back?
You got to fit it in the tour.
Would you
If
go?
I'm sure I would if they were to do that. I can't see it ever happening. I think Jim is he's so busy with his painting, and Bob has got his career is going great guns with other stuff that he's doing. And also it's as creatives, I don't I see them as people who never want to go back. They're always going to go
Hmm.
forward, and they're going to leave that where it was and move on to the next thing. which is, which is why, their big night out was a hit, and then they moved on from it, and they come up with Shooting Stars, and yeah.
Yeah, you said, thinking earlier, you said your first bought in the Shooting Stars to do that game with the opera singer to
Mm.
not to make you laugh. And Bob has just completed a whole series on Amazon Prime, which is exactly that
Yes.
last one
Yeah.
Oh man.
laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I
So there
expect
you go.
you'll be in series 2 of that one.
Who knows? Who knows? I haven't watched any of that yet. I must catch up with it. I've heard really great things about it though.
Yeah, it's very
I
good.
think you could have done really well on that, Jack. Not laughing, but
Well, I'm not very good at it. I'm a terrible corpser, really. If I'm with people and there's that atmosphere, I find it really hard not to laugh. So I don't know if I would be any good at it.
I thought the same with Bob, to be honest, because yeah, he's a notorious corpser. So I'm
yeah.
surprised he managed to get to the end of that show
Yeah,
in one
yeah,
piece.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's also great on Would I Lie to You, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
Oh
Mm.
yeah, yeah, genius. I think the last time I saw you with Vic on TV was on a Comic Relief, and they did No Direction, which is a boy
Yes,
band spoof.
yes, that's right. Yeah, I wonder what year that was. It might have been. I don't know. It was about
It's 2015, so 10 years ago. Yeah,
10 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a we had a rehearsal for that, and we were all going to be dressed up with it. That was the thing. That went out live as well, so that was quite. I was quite nervous about that, but it was okay. I was really out of my comfort zone doing that. I think Jim enjoyed it more than anyone actually.
Yeah.
He just loves to show off.
Let's talk about your tour.
Mm,
So you're having a little breather from it at the moment. I saw you in one of your work in progress shows that you did.
yeah.
Um, which are fascinating. I think if you're a comedy fan, they're
Mm,
fascinating to watch a work in progress show because you can sort of tell, I think, what you're going to keep in and what you're not. Is
yeah.
it
Yeah.
progressed much since then? Now the full tour.
When was it you saw me? I can't remember.
That was before Christmas. It was in
Oh, right.
Hereford. So yeah,
Mm.
November,
Oh,
December,
Hereford.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, look, it's I don't want to go on too much about the technicalities because it can be very boring to listen to how a stand-up routine is put together. But the thing that surprises me always is that the stuff that you rely on at the beginning is the stuff you hopefully start chucking out, and the stuff that you begin with in those work in progress tours is the stuff that becomes the becomes the inspiration for what you end up with.
Mm.
It's a strange thing that happens at some point in the tour where
Yeah.
I liken it to having I always love jokes and gags and putting in stuff and thinking up stuff like that, and then I sort of build stand-up routines around the gags, and then bit by bit take away the scaffolding of the actual gags because they start to get in the way of what's emerging. It's a very pretentious way of saying that you just do it night after night after night and get better at it. And the stuff you start out with, which enable you to get on stage in the first place, is the stuff that you can then start to remove, and you end up with something a bit more, I suppose, discursive and hopefully a lot funnier. Yes, I mean I called it Small World because with my comedy, my stand up anyway, I've always enjoyed um, talking about the minutiae of life and the stupid small details of life, and so really it was a doubling down on that and just seeing how pointless I could make some of my material and still make it funny and hold up, and that was really kind of that was the sort of brief I set myself. And so Small World was about literally things, small things in my world that I can think too much about a lot of the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm loving the tea on tour. I'm
Mm,
loving your Instagram
yeah.
videos about all your different tea setups in various
Yeah.
venues. Yeah, it seems to go from one extreme to another, doesn't it? It could be a kettle in one place, and then
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
place is like a shop you've got
It's
laid out for you.
extraordinary. Well, I was having a Zoom meeting a bit like this with my agent and a couple of people who do PR and stuff, and they just sort of said, it'd be good if you had some sort of constant thing that you were posting on Instagram, because this is what young people do now, is that they, go out in the street and then, and then film themselves saying or
Yeah.
doing something funny, and then they post it. And I thought, I just can't be bothered. And then I just thought, well, there's something I could do here. When I got to the theatre, I thought, I know what I'll do. What I'll do is I'll review the tea and coffee facilities at every dressing room and then hotel room I go into. And it's something I can do quite easily, and it's something that I can find some hopefully a bit of fun in. But you're right, it does change wherever you go, and I'm always amazed how some theatres are so kind of I don't know, they're so sort of dismissive of the people who've kind of driven miles and miles to get there. They've sold the theatre out for you, and you can't even be bothered to put some basic facilities that are asked for in the contract, in the
Here's a tea
rider.
bag. Yeah.
That's all it is. It's not like I'm not asking for, champagne or M&Ms with all the red ones taken out. I'm not asking for anything special, but to be able to make a cup of tea is not a huge ask, and yet it seems to be beyond some venues. As a result, anyway, of my postings, I have been very pleasantly surprised by quite a few places that have put on an absolute huge display for me.
Yeah.
Yeovil recently was one, and Basingstoke were very nice to me. And I think Birmingham as well. It's great. These are people who've obviously seen what's going on and
Seen the
thought, okay,
videos,
come on,
yeah.
let's raise our game.
Yeah.
And then there are other places.
Smorgasbord.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, total.
Cheese
Could
board.
open a small shop with the stuff they put on. So yeah, that's a bit of fun. So what I'm thinking of now is that I might do is do something what I describe as hotels and how to survive them. So it's a brief along the same lines as that thing that drives me nuts, where you get a kettle in your hotel room, but you don't know where to plug it in because it's nowhere near where the. So just little things like that in every hotel. I think I've got a few tips that I can relay, and I don't know if people might be pleased to hear from me on that respect.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I suppose it's something you spend a lot of time in hotels, traveling the country and stuff.
Exactly. So I'd be, and invariably it's the same things that drive you nuts wherever you go. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
a difficult thing.
Yeah, you've got your own podcast now, of course, as well.
Yes,
With My
we do.
Dog.
Yes, Oh My Dog, which I do with Sean Morsh and Sarah Morgan Beckett, who is our producer and is featured in the podcast. And it's as the name would suggest, it's all about dogs. It was Sean's idea, and so he just approached me and said, "Do you fancy doing a podcast about?" And again, I thought it's a podcasts where it seems everyone seems to have a podcast, so it's just another thing that you do. But it turns out it is really good fun, and we record one every week, most weeks anyway, and it's so nice to have something that you do that you look forward to doing. It's in sometimes in this world, in this work, I suppose with everyone's line of work, there's stuff that you prefer and stuff you don't prefer, and some of it feels like harder work than others. But it's never hard work to log in and just chat with these two and talk about our dogs and have a guest on and talk about their dog, and it's a bit of fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I first heard about it, I thought, well, it'll be good. It won't last that long. Can't be that many celebrities who have got dogs out there, but it's going to come out the woodwork.
Everyone's got a dog these days,
I know. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of lockdown dogs out there.
Oh yeah.
That people have got, and but we've had lots of great guests, and I think people enjoy coming on it, and even when we haven't had guests, it's fun just to chat, and it's a good sort of springboard for some conversation.
Yeah. One person, of course, you probably will never get is Bob Mortimer, who's famously a cat person.
Yeah. loves
Right.
his
Yeah.
cats.
Yeah. He probably wouldn't. Yeah, he wouldn't be involved in that. So I don't know if Jim has probably got dogs. He's got
I
enough.
know he's had dogs in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're dog people. We're both dog people, and we Paula. So
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Springer Spaniel.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice one. Okay,
The Boast
good.
Spaniels. Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
But
Yeah.
I just want to say, I think you were robbed on Taskmaster, Jack.
Oh well, this is
What
it's the
was
way
that
it
experience?
goes.
What was
It's
that
the way it
experience
goes.
like?
It was good. It's a strange thing because I mean I really liked everyone I was on it with, and including of course Alex and Greg, and the whole production team are excellent on that. They really are. I have to say, when you're in the house doing all the tasks. You've got this great art department who can just kind of do something on the fly, and you say, "Look, can you make me an aeroplane? I'm going to be running around the garden in it," and they'll help you sort it all out, and it's fantastic. So, I think I like it when you go on a production and everyone is on board with it. It's not like, oh, it's just another day at work.
Mm.
Everyone is keen on it, and so that's a great. It's not easy to create that atmosphere on set, and I think that's down to a lot of it is down to Alex because he's there for all the tasks, and he's just got a great vibe about him. And it's a lovely silly project. I've been asked to do it forever and ever, and I just never could do it and never make it work. And then I sort of went off the idea, and then I eventually I was able to do it this last year. So it was good.
So how does it work? How far in advance do you do the tasks of the actual show?
Quite a long time, actually. We did January. We went into the house, and I did my sort of 10 days in the house and on location as well. I think maybe it was a week of filming, but then you don't do the studios until May. So
right.
By then I'd completely forgotten about everything. I had no idea. So I had no idea what was coming up on the videos that they played in. I actually, as I went along, made some notes when I was doing the tasks, just so I'd have a bit of a heads up and try and remember. It didn't seem to make any difference though. So I'd completely forgotten what I did. It's including walking out on the tiebreaker. I'd had it by then. I was just I didn't want to do it, so I just walked out. You had to do this big sum and stay looking at Alex while he was talking to you as well, and I just thought it's just too much. And I didn't even, because I hadn't watched the program enough. I didn't realize that could be a potentially important feature. If so, I would have taken it a bit more seriously.
But I loved your relationship with Rosie Jones.
Yes,
there was a proper bond there, wasn't there?
it was a good pairing, and Rosie was great. It's just great on it. It's good sort of. I enjoyed her. She brings about a sort of comedy anarchy, into any given situation. So it was. She was very funny on it.
Yeah. So anything else in the pipeline you can tell us about, Jack, or we just concentrate on the tour?
The touring is continuing. The radio show is continuing. Sorry, I haven't a clue. The podcast is continuing, and so I'm just doing stuff as it comes along and enjoying what I can from it. Yeah.
I saw about you doing the world's most dangerous roads.
Yes, I've just done that. I think that's already out there now. It's on Dave.
Yeah.
I did a world's most.
What was that like?
Kyrgyzstan. It was okay. It was pretty hairy, actually. To be honest, it was quite hairy. So, and of course, in your mind, you're trying to rationalize it and thinking they wouldn't make you do something where you could die.
It wouldn't put you in danger.
And then when you do it, you realize actually you could die if you got this wrong. And so I don't know how the insurance works on a show like that. It's
I was
unbelievable.
just thinking that, yeah.
But you start imagining. It's one of those things where you do it, and then later on you start imagining yourself careering off down a cliff, in a car. But yeah,
not dissimilar feeling to being on Shooting Stars, I guess.
Very, very, yeah, not quite as scary actually.
Would have been good telly though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Jack. That was quite a
welcome.
boast.
Thank you so much, Jack.
All right then, and speak to you again.
Thank you all for listening to this edition of Quite a Boast. Special thanks to Matt Lucas for permission to use the Peanuts music as our theme tune, and thanks to Ed Lewis for this edit. Thank you to Jake Chesham for permission to use the photo from his 1995 shoot of Jim and Bob in our various online locations for the podcast. And of course, thank you very much to Jim Moyer and Bob Mortimer, without whom this podcast, well, it just wouldn't exist, would it? Remember to check out Paula's Divine Comedians podcast as well, and to join the Reeves Mortimer Depository of Curious Stuff Facebook group. And I think you'll agree that really was a lot of fun. Goodbye.